People say that seeing is believing, but when it comes to trusting God, I say that believing is seeing, and the impossible becomes possible. I want to tell you a story about trusting God. There was once a man whose trust was so strong that no matter what happened to him, his happiness was never undermined. In a land not too far from here lived a king that had everything. After all, he was a king and a ruler. He wondered to himself, could there be anyone out there with fewer worries than I have? I must find out. The king walked around at night, standing behind the houses to hear what people were saying. All he heard was people's worries. One had problems with his business, another was in trouble with the government. In this way, the king heard each one's worries. A guest. Thank you, God. A guest. Come in, my friend. Come in. I'm so happy you came. You must be exhausted and cold. The man gave the king some wine and drank to the king. To the king! Out of fondness for the man, the king also drank. After the meal, the king lay down to sleep. He saw that the man was completely happy, with absolutely no worries at all. Where does all this come from? I'm a fixer. I can fix anything that is broken. I can't make anything from scratch. But if something breaks, I know how to fix it. So each morning I go out and I fix a few things. After I've earned 5 or 6 coins, I buy all the food and drink I need for myself. I will spoil it for him. Write this. By royal decree, it is forbidden to give anything to be fixed. Anyone who has something in need of repair must either fix it himself or buy a new one. The fixer was dismayed by this, but he had trust in God. Why are you chopping the wood? How is it that a rich man like you has to chop wood for himself? That can't be right. Here, I'll chop the wood for you. I looked all over, but couldn't find anyone to chop it for me, so I was forced to chop it myself. The fixer saw that this was a good way to earn money, so he went to chop more wood until he had earned 6 coins. With the money, the fixer again bought himself his entire meal and returned home. The king went out again that night to see what had happened. He saw the fixer sitting with food and drink in front of him, and it was really a fine feast, and he was very happy. Where does all this come from? My usual work is fixing things, but the king has issued a decree forbidding anyone from giving out anything to be fixed. So I went out and chopped wood until I earned enough money for what I needed. After leaving the fixer, the king issued a decree that everyone was required to chop their own wood. When the fixer heard this, he was upset, since he had no money. But still, he trusted in God. Oh, pity me. Don't mean to intrude, but I was walking down the street when I saw you and I couldn't help thinking, is it right that you should have to clean that barn? I looked all over, but couldn't find anyone to clean it for me, so I was forced to clean it myself. Here, let me. I'll clean out the barn for you. When the fixer was finished, the man paid him 2 coins. The fixer cleaned out a few more barns until he earned himself the 6 coins that he needed. He bought his entire meal and returned home. And it was really a fine feast, and he was very happy. The king went inside and stayed the night. In the morning, the fixer again accompanied the king out. When the king asked him how he had gotten the money, the fixer explained what he had done. The king then issued a decree making it forbidden to hire anyone to clean out barns. The fixer was dismayed by this, but he had trust in God. The fixer decided to sign up as a soldier, but he had made a condition with the recruiting officer that he would serve only for a brief time, and that each morning he would be paid for that day's service. At the end of the day, after finishing his duties, the fixer quickly removed his uniform, and with his pay went out and bought his entire meal. And it really was a fine feast, and he was very happy. As before, when the king asked him how he had gotten the money, the fixer explained what he had done. The king summoned the recruiting officer and ordered him not to pay wages to any of the soldiers that day. The fixer asked the officer for that day's wages.
But we had an agreement.
The fixer was dismayed by this.
The fixer devised a plan. He removed the blade from his sword and replaced it with a wooden replica, so that no one could tell the difference. He then pawned the sword's blade and bought his entire meal as usual. And it really was a fine feast. The next morning, when the king asked the fixer how he was doing, the fixer told him the whole story, how he had removed the sword's blade from the handle and had pawned it to buy his meal.
But when I get paid today, I will redeem the blade and fix the sword. No one will be wiser because I can fix anything. The king would have lost nothing.
When the king returned to his palace, he summoned the officer in charge.
I have a criminal in my jail who has been sentenced to death for his crime. Call the soldier you have hired and order him, and only him, to use his sword to cut off this condemned criminal's head.
The officer went and summoned the fixer. The king ordered all his officers to gather in the great hall in order to watch the fixer make a spectacle of himself.
Your Majesty, why have you summoned me? In order for you to cut off the condemned criminal's head. But I've never shed blood in my life, please. I beg you, order someone else to do it. No, it must be you who kills him, no one else. And it must be now. But Your Majesty, is the verdict clear-cut? Probably it's not clear that he deserves to die. I've never killed anyone. How can I shed the blood of somebody who might not even deserve to die? There is no question at all that he is guilty, and so must be put to death. The verdict is clear, and you must be the one to carry out his death sentence. God Almighty, I have never in my life shed blood. If this man does not deserve to die, let the blade of my sword turn to wood.
The king saw what a fine man the fixer was, and so he sent him off in peace.
To the king!